Okay, I'm here with my buddy Caspian. Caspian is dog reactive. We've recruited a, what's his name again? No, Cooper? Connor. Connor is going to help us out. So basically what we're going to do is a version of what I call click for looks. This is also referred to as the engage disengage game. So I've got treats here. I'm going to be using his marker word, which is yes. So what they're going to do, so that's his way of saying we're a little bit too close. So I'm going to move a little bit further away. And when I'm going to give them a signal, they're just going to walk back and forth, and I'm going to give him treats for looking at them. Now, I ask a dog to sit just because a sit can indicate a dog feels comfortable. Don't ever force your dog to sit. Ask once if they won't sit, then move 5 feet further away. All right, if you guys want to walk towards that tree and walk back and forth a couple times, yes. Yes. So what I'm doing is I'm saying that looking at the other dog gets me a treat. So right there, that was a little bit too close. All right, can you guys walk back to this car right here? And then turn around and walk back one more time. Thank you so much. So there, I wasn't quite ready. So I'm gonna have a bunch of treats in my hand. And I'm gonna have you move all the way back there. So I'm gonna move so we have a little bit more distance. Hey buddy, come here, sit. All right, 1 sec, let's let the Amazon truck go. Usually they park right where I don't want them to park. Okay, go ahead. So I'm waiting for, yes. Find it. Yes. Yes. Yes, thank you so much. You guys have a great one.
Waited 30 minutes to find someone else walking the dog.
Okay, so let's kind of sum this up. So basically, he was barking a little bit. Yes, you want to demonstrate a little bit more barking? We don't need that. So I can do the find it aways that I talked to you guys about off camera. And you see he's happy to do this. The dog is still there. Find it. Yes. And this is, yes, yeah, you're making it harder, and we're giving them a chance to move further away. When he barks, a dog barks is trying to make the other thing go away. So if we distract him a little bit like this, then he turns around and looks, and that dog is a block away, I don't need to bark at them anymore. So what I usually like to do when I do this is, today we're doing, it's Easter Sunday, as I'm doing something I told the guardian not to do. But basically, it was difficult for us to find a dog, and we're just kind of walking the neighborhood. This is a nice part of LA, but this is still pretty urban. So this wasn't enough distance, you saw, because he reacted. If a dog reacts, that's my way of understanding that I'm too close. And the dog, it matters. That dog was pretty well behaved and just kind of walking extra. You have another dog that's pulling and going crazy and barking, he's probably going to be more reactive, and you might need to have more distance for that dog. A more calm dog, you might be able to get closer. So what I usually like to do is I like to practice doing this sort of thing in a park. And I cheat. I like to have somebody else whose dog it is that I know that this dog hasn't met. I have my earbuds, I'm talking to that dog, and we're doing it at a big open park. There is always a distance where your dog can see the other dog without reacting. The whole point of this exercise, this is kind of a counter-conditioning desensitization exercise, which means that we're trying to change his emotional response when he sees another dog. So basically, we have to be far enough away where he doesn't perceive that dog to be a threat. And then when he looks at the dog, I say, yes. And he turns away and looks at me and gets a treat. So what we're essentially doing is saying, just looking at another dog gets you a treat, but only if he doesn't react. If he reacts, then I would move him away as far as I can. Now, if your dog is fearful or reactive, I get free treats. To stop him barking, if I'm giving him 10 treats, a lot of people are like, you're rewarding him for barking. If I let him bark and give him a treat, bark and get a treat, then yes, that's the case. But if he's in a fear response, I'm just trying to change his emotional state, and throwing a bunch of treats on the ground and just saying, find it, is a nice way to distract your dog and build a positive association. So what we want to do is, instead of walking in a neighborhood when we never know when or where the dog's going to be or how that dog's going to react, we want to try to do this at a park with a friend of ours that we can talk to on our earbuds. And again, he has a partner dog at home that doesn't like white dogs because he had a bad experience with a white dog. So I would recruit friends who had white dogs so we can specifically practice this activity at a park. Now, a lot of times I was telling the guardians off camera, right here, there's a big wide distance. If you noticed when you watched this video earlier, I was trying to use this car to shield him. So in a perfect situation, we'd like to be at a park where that maybe has a walking path. So let's say that this street right here is the walking path and this is the park. There's a whole bunch of green space. And a lot of people are walking their dogs here after work. Well, maybe there's a shrubbery here and a shrubbery there, and there's only a 4-foot space in between the two shrubberies, and it's obscured on either side. So he won't see. I can hear the dogs. I can maybe look over the shrubbery, and I move as far away this way as I need to. And then when he looks at the dog, I say yes. He looks at me to get that treat. He looks back, yes, and gets the treat. When he looks a third time, that dog is past the visual acuity. And then well, I don't have to bark because the dog went away. And after a while, looking at dogs gets me a treat. This is what the engage part of what we call the engage-disengage game. So I see a dog, I look at it, you say yes, and I look back and I get this treat. And again, if we are structured and create a stage setup where there's only a short period of distance or short field of distance, then he doesn't like see it, and then eventually I run out of treats and then he barks. So eventually we can get closer and closer to this, but eventually what will happen is if that's the other dog, he's gonna go like, look, and then look at you without you saying yes. So at first we're saying yes. When he looks at the dog, you say yes, that causes him to turn and get the treat. But after enough practice, he'll look and turn around right away. Then you're saying yes for him looking at you, looking away from the dog. So what is he doing? He's disengaging from the dog instead of being reactive. Then we can gradually, and you can get gradually closer at either stage of this, but you eventually want to get to the point where you're pretty close. And if there are dogs in your neighborhood, specific dogs that he barks with that you see on a regular basis, instead of running away from it, I would just say, hey, we hired a behaviorist to come and help us. He gave us this tip. He said we should walk the dogs together. Would you mind if we meet at Clover Park? Maybe what works for your schedule? Let's start meeting there, and we'd call it parallel walks. So you're walking together, but maybe with 50 yards between us. And as we're walking gradually, and this might be over several walks, you're gradually getting closer. And eventually it's human, dogs on the outside, and the dogs are practicing doing something together, but in a positive way. And we went slow, so the dogs didn't feel a fear response to act out and make the other dog go away. So they're essentially practicing not barking. And systematically you can get closer and closer and closer. Sometimes they just learn to be tolerated. Sometimes they can actually learn to be buddies and they can hang out together. That doesn't have to be your goal, and you don't have to do that with each dog. That's the nice thing about going to a park. You know, like Runyon would probably be way too busy, but if you go to a place where there's a nice little path and people are walking their dogs, you might get 50 or 75 repetitions in a short period of time. Now, last little note on this. This is a very intense activity. And I've been told by an expert it burns about 500 calories in about 3 minutes. No, it does not. But it burns a lot of calories. And so remember when you're doing this sort of thing for your dog, we look at this and don't look at him as really being overly taxed. He's breathing heavy, it's in the sun, this is a pretty intense experience. So these experiences, I really don't want to go longer than maybe 10, 15 minutes maximum, because for us it looks like he's just standing there getting treats, but he is really emotionally going through a lot. And always, always, always end on a positive. So the last repetition he remembers looks at that dog. So if you're practicing, he looks at a dog and barks at him, and don't leave then. Walk a couple feet away, wait for another dog to come by. So he looks and you say yes, and give him that treat. And so the last thing he remembers is I looked at a dog and I got a treat. Sit. This is my buddy Caspian, and these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that's reactive to other dogs on walks.